Bonsoir tout le monde. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Sélection Nationale with your co-host, Derek Etienne.
And I'm Daryl Etienne, and we're excited to talk to you about all things Haitian national team. Specifically, we've been focused on the U17s and the World Cup qualifiers over at the CONCACAF Championships in Mexico, and we want to give you some information what happened in their last game.
The last game, unfortunately, fell short 4-1 to Canada and lost the third place match, but we'll come right back and discuss it right after this. And welcome back to Sélection Nationale. We are here dealing with the U17 national team who has finished their run in the CONCACAF Championship, the U17 qualifiers, the third place match against Canada, and we fell short 4-1.
Yeah, it's a little disappointing. You know, I would like to start first with just the positive side of things, that with all of the adversity, the different things that we have to work out, we still ended up number four in our region. So yeah. I think that's a good nucleus or basis to build from. But nevertheless, it is disappointing that we lost to Canada.
I mean, when you think of all the teams that were in this tournament from the preliminary rounds to the final rounds of the championship, for us to finish in the top four is a very good achievement, very good accomplishment. And so we're very proud of the national team by finishing fourth. And it shows the step in the right direction of what we can do to improve, that we're not that far behind. Yeah. We are close and we are there, which in games that I think that could have been winnable. For me, particularly this Canadian game.
Yeah, this Canadian team was a very good side. At the same time, coach made some changes. It seemed like he did the sympathy run. He went ahead and started playing players that didn't play throughout the tournament so everyone could have that experience.
So it's a tough situation. You got to try to figure out and manage the whole team. You have a full roster, and there are some players that didn't get any minutes. And now you have to decide, do I want to put my best team forward so that I can win the third place match? Or is it really not about winning and I want to give players the experience and give them an opportunity who may not have gotten bad minutes? So it was a decision that Coach Auger had to make, and he chose to go with giving players time who didn't get a lot of time in the first 3-4 matches.
Do you agree with that decision?
Well, for me personally, I like winning, and so and I think what depends on what age and stage of development you're in determines whether winning is important or not.
Right.
So when you're in the younger ages of, under 12, U10, U12, U14, it's more about development, just playing games, getting moments in. But once you hit U17, that's the performance stage. And you want to teach the level of competing, and you want to start setting standards of what the national team should be competing at that level going into U17 and U20. So for me, I want to win that. I want to be there. And so to be in a third place match, I wanted to show the region that we're the third place team. And when you're third place, that means that you could have won one of the semis. Things didn't go your way, but you finished third. So for me, I would have wanted to go after the win rather than just trying to give players time. I would have still given players an opportunity, but I would have went strong first to try to go for the win.
I think that you touched it perfectly, where at this stage, when you're talking national team, right there's the precedent set. The best players play. Period. Now, if you have players that were started 2 or 3 games, they need to be rested. And if that's your reasoning, that's a different story. But when it comes to this is a qualifying, this is a placement match, where we're going to end up into the next stage, it's very important, and I think that we went more with the heart rather than with the passion to just make that statement. And I think it backfired, to be honest with you.
Well, and when you think about trying to put your best team forward, in a national team, you expect to have a full roster of 23 quality players.
Right.
The top 23 players in the roster, so that when you do make changes, it's not that much of a drop-off. But I think with this Haitian side, I think we probably had the starting 11 plus maybe 2 or 3 players that I feel that can contribute and not necessarily drop the level. But then you have some younger players that were coming in and gaining experience, and you can see when they got in the game that they didn't have the experience, didn't have the confidence, maybe even the physicality to compete at this level. So again, either way you go, I mean, it's not necessarily a wrong decision, whether you want to give players the experience who's going to be the nucleus for the next U17 or the next U20, or if you want to go after and win it. Me personally, I want to finish in third place to send a message that, hey, USA, Mexico, we're coming right behind you.
All right, well, let's get into it. So he had a lineup. He made a few changes in the lineup.
Changes in the lineup. Of course, we went with Kimberly Prince, the #1 in goal. So that does tell me that we need depth in goalkeeping. The one goalkeeper, when Kimberly Cadet came in for the injured Prince in the El Salvador game, that's the only time she got in was when Prince went down injured. So she didn't even get a sympathy start. So that tells me that we don't have a lot of depth in the goalkeeper. So going forward, we're going to have to try to recruit and train and develop new goalkeepers. We had Julissa Pierre came back into the center of defense. Esther Valius came back on the left back. Nessa Francois played on the right side. And in the midfield, I thought it was interesting. Delanchi Pierre played every single minute of every single game except for the third place match. And now she was been replaced in the midfield. Darlene Sandet played in the midfield alongside with Chesneda Nicola and with Naomi Senvilus. So you saw a different in the midfield because Delanchi Pierre was the #6, the general. And we talked about that she's a good player, but I think that she could be more fit and have the stamina to be able to compete for 90 minutes. And then of course up front, I think Yuvina Murat was playing on the wing with Dominique Desert was still playing on the left wing, or I think they moved her to the right side. And then of course we had Loginia Etienne starting up front in the center forward.
Yeah, it was good to see Ella Marie Etienne get the start. I thought that she did well, helped with contributing. And I just felt that I wish she would have had a little bit more minutes within the game to really show, what she can do. You can tell she's just there trying to impact, trying to make a play. Wasn't able to really be fluent and free in the games.
I think Ella Marie Etienne, along with Darlene Sandant, these are the younger players that I think would benefit from playing matches in this tournament. They're the younger players that are going to be the core, I think, of the next U17 qualifier. They should be the core players. And so I thought that especially against USA, was it USA? Or was it Canada? No, I think it was USA when Ella Marie came in and she had a nice little run, which got the penalty kick. So she had moments where that you can see that she's a player, that she can play. But I can tell that perhaps it was the nervousness, perhaps it was just the shy, timid is probably why Coach Auger didn't put a lot of confidence in her. But I think that she's going to be a part of the future. Same with Sandat. I think that you can see when she got into the games that she has something there, but then maybe perhaps didn't have the confidence to be a starter in most of the games. But I think they're going to be a core in the future.
So why make her captain?
Well, I think when you move, if you're going to move Delanchi Pierre, who was the #6, who was the general, and it seems to me like the coach went with a different captain every game. I think the only one that got two captain runs was Nazon. And so it seems like he was sharing the responsibility of captain. And some coaches do that to show that we're a team and all of us can be leaders. Some coaches do that. I think that sometimes you do need to have an established leader who is the coach on the field. So the one that's going to get things done on the field, they're going to get players to respond on the field. If you got to respond to a referee, so some coaches have that in mind. I don't know, which do you prefer? Do you prefer sharing the responsibility, or do you prefer having one set voice, maybe a second captain?
Depending on the level. When I'm coaching at the youth levels beneath U17, you may have 3 or tri-captains and you have 3 people, but it's still one person that does the coin toss. The others are there. You have that. But I feel, again, once you get to this level of national team, we have to still raise up leaders. And that leader should be the best player. It should be the best mentality player, not just the goal scorer, not just the defender, but who has the mentality to lead the group, consistent in their play, and in their communication skills, their motivation skills. And I personally felt it should have either been Kimberly Prince or Lorgenia Etienne.
I agree.
You know, if you look at the game and watch the behaviors of the players, those two have the captain mentality. But, you know, maybe he figures let them be leaders and bring, you know, I just would not appoint and give somebody that captain band if you don't have
a consistent starter.
If you're not a consistent starter, you don't have the heart, you don't have the passion, you don't have the mentality to run the show and to communicate and advocate for your team with the referees, with the coach, you know, then why are we doing that? You know,
so I think that he was just trying to share the love, give everybody an opportunity, give them experience, wear the band, represent the team. But I agree. That perhaps I think Prince should have been given the captain armband. She showed fight for the whole team the entire time. Now, Lorgenia Etienne could have been the captain as well, but some players who are even great players don't want to take that leadership role. You know, there are some players who rather lead by example rather than being a vocal leader. Each team, I think, needs to have a vocal leader. And to be honest with you, I think that was the missing piece this entire tournament. I didn't see, because we shared the responsibility and everyone had a different opportunity to be captain, we didn't have a leader that said, hey, this is not good enough. We didn't have a leader that say, look, we can't be giving up goals late like this in the second half. We didn't have someone to step up and say, look, concentrate, last 5 minutes of each half. So I think that midfielder should be someone that's going to be a vocal leader as well. That captain should be a vocal leader, not just leading by example. That's important too, but also a vocal leader.
Yeah. So going into the game, you know, we started out USA. You know, they were really, you know, their possession team, you know, to keep them in the ball.
Canada.
But I'm saying when we had USA against, you're seeing how we weathered the storm for how many minutes before we gave up the first goal against USA. I want to compare USA and Canada. So the 24th minute is when we gave up the goal. Now let's go back to Canada. So what did we learn from the USA game? We made some changes. And it seemed like we sat back still a little bit, but it was still just trying to counter and just play direct and hope that Lorgenia would make a miracle,
which she did,
and it happened.
That's my point. I think this is the thing that I think we need to learn about this team is that we may not have had the quality to play out of the back, to build out of the back, to pass the ball, move the ball, to break lines and create chances to score a goal. We had a strong attacking player up front, and that all we can do is just play it forward and find moments to get in behind. And it worked against El Salvador. It worked against Costa Rica, and it just didn't work against the quality teams. Now, against this Canadian team, the 7th minute, we play a direct ball forward, and she does her magic, and she scores the goal. She almost paid the price by getting tackled by it, but she scored another great goal, getting her 8th goal of the tournament. Let's just, before we even get into the rest of the game, let's talk about Lorgenia Etienne. This is a player who has not only showed from day one, but every single game she made an impact on the game. Even as the games got more difficult, she was still a player to watch. She was still a player that had the technical ability, the tactical awareness, that had the strength, the tenacity, and the quality to make things happen. It's no wonder that she made the best player and won the golden ball of the tournament.
Yeah, 100%. It was clear. Anyone that was watching the game, you know how many phone calls we've gotten, and everyone's calling and saying, oh my God, who is this Lorgenia Etienne? From college coaches, pro coaches, everyone is interested, and the eyebrow has been raised that this young rising star has dominated, and she clearly dominated in this particular
If you think about it, the girl that won the golden boot, for USA had the same amount of goals.
But because they won,
right? But even still, they have the same amount of goals, and she had more goals ahead of the final game, the third game. So it was going to go to the American player. The point I'm saying is, even though she scored more goals, the entire CONCACAF knew who the best player was. So scoring all the goals doesn't make you the best player. And this is the second time in Haitian U17 history that we've had that we finished 4th and won the golden boot. So the golden ball. So Melchi Dumonet, Coventina did the exact same thing in 2018. We lost to Canada in the third place match, and were eliminated from the World Cup, but it was a dominant performance where Coventina Dumonet was the standout player, and she received the Ballon d'Or. And so it was the exact same performance, or the exact same impact from Logenia, where she dominated. And even though other players scored goals as well, it's clear she was the best player in the tournament.
I mean, she's good with her. What I love about her is her hold-up play is immaculate. It's, you don't find, and this is no disrespect to female players, but when you look at most female players find their success at running at players. You know, not many are brave enough to hold the ball, you know, deal with the center backs, you know, hitting them from behind and elbowing and thigh knees to your thighs from behind and ankles and stepping on your Achilles. You know, I'm the defender and midfielder, so,
and I'm the forward. I know,
so you know, so. But not many women can really have shown that at that young stage, that young age, that they can deal with that. She did it like a pro. She was able to deal with the rough play and double teamed from Mexican players, from American players, from Canadian players, which are considered the top 3 in this CONCACAF region. She manhandled them, if for lack of better words. She ate it and took whatever they gave and still produced by herself. So imagine when we get other quality players that have the same mentality, abilities, that's willing to fight and bite and work hard to make things happen, and then have the quality to combine with her. You can see she wants to combine and can combine. But then when she saw after a few plays that we keep losing the ball, what did she start to do? Turn with it and go. Turn and go. You know what I mean? And so I mean, it's just the maturity level from Etienne is just beyond her years, and you know she's just getting started. I can't wait to see what's
just getting started, and she was on the pre-list for the Gold Cup, and unfortunately she was not listed in the final roster for the Gold Cup. But to be honest with you, I would love to see her play there. I would love to see her get a chance. If you notice that the top teams, America, Canada, they're bringing their young superstars to the senior team, the players that can handle it. They're signing 17-year-old players and giving them an opportunity. Mallory Pugh Swanson got her opportunity for U.S. as a 16, 17-year-old. Trinity Rodman as a 16, 17, 18-year-old. So these are superstars.
Angel FC.
And Alyssa Thompson. These are young players who are 17, 18 years old, who are getting into the national team, getting exposed to that environment, and then earning an opportunity. I think that we ought to do the same thing with Logenia, that she needs to be in the environment with the senior team. I'm not saying that she's a starter right away, because we still have Narilia Mondesir, we still have Bathsheba Lewis, we still have Shirley Jurdy, and of course we have Dumonet. But if you put her around those players to learn from Dumonet, to learn from Narilia, to learn from these players, I don't think it'll be long before we see her in this roster for the World Cup that's coming in 2027.
100%. So, you know, that's something that, you know, the Federation should think about. You know, I'm sure they're looking at that and seeing, you know, with the success that Etienne has had, with the recognition that she's gained, you know, just out of the blue from here, she's really showed everybody that she is that player to watch, and she is the future of women's Haitian football.
She is the future of world football. Just like Dumonet is now making it known that there are Haitian players that can play at the highest level. Narilia Mondesir has showed that there are Haitian players that can play at the highest level. This is just another of many Haitian players, and I just think the world is finally starting to see it. You know, and it was great that we got on that stage at the World Cup in that just happened this past summer. Just getting to the World Cup in New Zealand, it put us on the stage to see that we can compete with these players. But now we're able to see that our youth are coming behind, that we saw what Narilia has done for the national team. Bathsheba Lewis, we saw what Mondesir with Coventina has done, and so many other players. But now to see that you have a Logenia Etienne, you have a Dominique Desert, you've got all of these young players that are coming up behind these players. The future is bright for the Haitian national team. We are in the golden era for the Haitian national team, but I think that Logenia needs to get that look with the senior team, and I think she's going to benefit, and so will we.
Well, hopefully she gets that look. When we go back to the game against Canada, it seemed that, you know, when we were playing direct, And when she paid that price for the goal, I was a little concerned because that was a hard blow.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that, something is the type of, if it was, I just seen the scenarios like that, you know what I mean? That Haiti was punished for reckless challenges like that on players. And that was a reckless challenge outside the box.
Well, I think if she did not score, it would have been a red card.
You think?
Because it would have been a foul
there was a
that
goal.
denied.
Was there a yellow? Did they give the yellow?
She got a yellow.
Okay,
she did get a yellow. If they would have scored, if she would not have scored, then it would have just been. Then it would have been you denied a goal scoring chance, red card, keepers off, and down a player.
Yeah.
But because she did score, they just gave her the card because she had no intention of going for the ball and could have injured the best player in the tournament.
Yeah.
You know, and perhaps did that impact the game? Did that impact her ability? Because here is the 7th minute. We're up 1-0 off of this goal. But did that play a part in her not being able to score? Who knows? You know, was that the game plan to take out the best player?
Yeah.
You just never know what was on that mindset. But all I do know is that it still couldn't stop her because she was still moving and she was still doing.
I look at it, but the hit, I've gotten hit in that way and was out for 4 weeks because of a concussion. Yeah. You know what I mean? Just medically, they would not clear me to play. I felt fine.
Yeah.
But the way the impact was to the head, they, gave me the concussion, whatever. And it was a similar blow to that where I thought for sure they were going to, like you said, it was a game plan. It was a tactical foul. It was a try to deny the goal, but neutralize the best player in the tournament and could have given her a concussion. Yeah. And I'm willing to look at the medical report and to check on her a couple of days from now to see where she is.
That's
because I believe that was a very difficult blow. That was a very hard blow. And the way that she scored the header, but then just the blow that had her go backwards, and then the way she hit the ground, it was very difficult. Yeah. And I thought that they did the yellow card, but I felt there was a harsh tackle, and I think there was some vicious intent behind it. But nevertheless, as you stated, you can't keep the Zoes down. It's something about the resilience in the fight, and she kept on going, and we still fell short. If we look at the things that have taken place within the game, that was the 7th minute, right?
The 7th minute, Lagina scores this great goal. We're winning 1-0 against Canada. So we're in the driver's seat right now. But then we're in stoppage time. We're in the 45th minute plus 2 minutes of extra time before halftime. And we give a silly foul. We give up a free kick and they score the goal. So it's what we talked about before, that concentration within the last 5 minutes of each half or the first 5 minutes of each half. We give up a goal right before halftime and now it's 1-1.
Yeah.
And I just think that we let Canada off the hook with that moment. We let them off the hook because if we could go into that halftime 1-0, now we have a little bit of momentum. Hopefully the coach would motivate the team to come out and do what needs to be done. But we're now tied 1-1. We still need an important conversation coming out of the locker room. And I'm not sure what happened because we come out into the second half and give up a goal in the first minute.
Yeah.
In the first minute of the second half, we give up a goal. So now we're down 2-1 in the beginning of the first half. And now we start seeing the same things that we saw the entire tournament.
And so now it goes down to, again, the maturity level of the players, the preparation for that side of the game. The coach cannot be criticized for the players' technical ability, the personnel that was given, but we as coaches are always criticized of our decision making,
how we manage the game,
how do we make adjustments, whether it's subs adjustments, where it's just moving position, changing our formation or what have you. And so when it comes down to that stoppage time, like you mentioned earlier, where was the leadership from the player or from the staff that says, girls, we have 3 minutes left. We give them nothing. All right, defend. Don't, like your life depends on it.
No
kick
goals
the ball out. We give away
goals.
Nothing. Just make sure everything's kicked in the stands. Let's get to the half. And then we go and address our problems. I don't know if any of that was said. And so we're leaving it to the players. Now, don't get me wrong. The next level elite player would be able to adjust and manage that. And that's what these tournaments are for, to find out who are the next level elite young players that can come up and impact a major professional roster. So we didn't see that. All right. So now we go down. It's 1-1. And as you stated, we don't know what the locker room talk was. I'm thinking, hey, why would you give that goal up? Oh, what are we doing? That was soft with lack of concentration. Okay, we got to go in strong the first 10 minutes. Both teams, you're kind of gearing them just to get them ready. We're not talking about, the tactic yet. It's just the mentality.
Just the mindset.
You got to want this. Then we get into the tactical. Okay, do we pull another player back? Do we send another player forward? My personal preference would have been Canada's coming with everything. Let's absorb it for the first few minutes, but let's just play direct still just to get relieve the pressure. Don't play with it. And we just gave up a simple, easy goal in 1 minute into the second half. So we go in from winning the game, and then if you add the 2 to 3 minutes of stoppage to the 1 minute, so winning 1-0 to losing 2-1 in 4 minutes.
Yeah.
So imagine as a young player, it's like, what just happened?
Right.
You know what I mean? Can they even grasp what's happening, what happened, what's happening? It's like, oh my God, we just were winning 1-0 and now we're losing 2-1, and I have 44 minutes to go. Yeah. It's now which players are able to mentally be able to adjust?
Well, and this is for me, this is what we saw every single game. It's like we saw two different teams. The first team that comes out, that fights, that does what needs to be done. But then we lose focus, we lose fitness, and we lose fight. I like that. We lose our focus, we lose our fitness, and then eventually we have no more fight in us. And every game that we played in this tournament, the second half was where we fell apart. Yeah, the second half is where we fell apart. If you look at the scoreline, we gave up a goal in the first minute of the second half, 46th minute, 53rd minute, and then the 51st minute, and then the 53rd minute. So the 46th minute, that's 1 minute into the first half. Then 5 minutes later.
Hold up, 1 minute into the first half, which is literally 3 minutes after the giving up the goal and the stoppage time.
Right.
So let's look at those numbers.
So 5 minutes. In 5 minutes, we give up 2 goals, and then after the next 5 minutes, we give up another 2 goals. So from the start of the second half, at the 53rd minute, this is less than 10 minutes. With seven minutes into the second half, we're down 4-1. So we were winning 1-0, and now 7 minutes into the second half, we're down 4-1. Wow. And so we clearly are not focused in the second half. And then the second half, we just lose fitness. Now we make subs and you put fresh legs in. And so now you start to bring the original starters back into the game. And so now you would think that, okay, we could get back in this, but we just could not match it. Yeah. And we just could not come out of that hole. So for me, I think what we can learn from this tournament is we have to do better with preparation matches that gives the team the fitness levels to be able to stand a 5-6 game tournament. We have 1 game rest in between matches. And so we need to have a roster of deep players that can come in and impact the game, but then we also need to have good fitness levels and then do well on our recovery, because it was clear that our second half performances were just not good enough. Yeah. And I don't think it's that the team wasn't good enough. Right. It's just that we just did not have what it takes to compete. We could not compete. We could not run. They were easily getting counters on us. We were not tracking back in transition. It was just, you saw us just fall and just go and fall apart and go with downhill after the second half began to start. And that's the areas that I think we really need to improve on. We need to play for 90 minutes, not just for 50 minutes.
Yeah, yeah. And then so the preparation, I feel that if we are, some of the girls, where they're playing, I think that's something that needs to be addressed and looked into. Obviously there's a lot that we mentioned this in one of our previous broadcasts. There's a lot that was going on in Haiti. So how many of the players were actually playing competitively? Yeah. Because think about it. We talked about it with the senior team on the boys side, the men's side, a lot of the players are playing at a certain level. So they're getting fitness, so the senior team, they're playing pro over here. They're playing over here, Division I college over here. So there's a certain standard and level of fitness that they will not fall beneath. Yeah. So now when you come together with the national team in the camp, the coach doesn't have to get you fit. Right. The coach has to focus on tactics. How are we going to play? Chemistry, relationships, which 2 center backs work well together, which center back and right back works together, which 3 center mids are we going to go with, which forwards are going to, that's what the coach focuses on, not on making sure that you're running and doing double sessions to get you, fit. It should not be, so that's something we have to address. And that's before we even get to what you just mentioned, the preparation matches. Yeah. So that's just the level of if we're selecting players who have been playing. Yeah. That right there has to be the focus. We will select players to this roster, players who have been playing competitively somewhere. And then you compare the level of competitiveness to determine, do you even deserve to be here? So once we settle that, these players have been playing over here, over here, over there, over there. They have been playing. So we're not worried about their fitness levels. Now it's just worrying about the chemistry and becoming one. And now when we come, now we do the second preparation. We play X amount of games, mini tournaments or something that can get us used to playing 60 minutes, 70 minutes. And then now your second string players will come in, same fitness level. The quality may be just the same or maybe slightly lower, but we're still in the competing mode, and then we have 4 to 5 games before we play. Now the tournament is going to be, we're looking at 4 to 6 games, and now we're better prepared. So I think it's massive that we learn from that, and then we go forward with that level of preparation.
Yeah, and it's extremely difficult. That's why the teams like USA, teams like Canada and Mexico, is that there's such an investment in that women's football program, that they have the funds to be able to compete in these tournaments. They're able to do these international matches. They're able to bring all these players into camp and do all those things. And so this is what we need. We need to make sure that we have the investment into the Haitian women's football program. And so whether the funds that we get from FIFA, what we get from CONCACAF, and then just from the Haitian government, and even those who want to support, we just need to get behind these teams. We've made history already. This current senior team is the core team from the U20 team that went to the World Cup. So that means that this U17 team is the future for the next 4 to 8 years. Mm-hmm. And so we have to get behind them and to help them continue to develop, because I don't feel that this team was prepared for this tournament.
Right.
And I'm not saying that they didn't practice. Mm-hmm. I don't think they were prepared for this level of competition. Mm-hmm. And because I think that we lost games that we could have had better results in if we were better prepared.
Yeah.
So
going forward, for me, I think that one of the main things that we mentioned is the preparation and for the games. But then you have to look at, like we said, the future. Which players are we going to continue to track and watch? We also have to look at recruitment. All right, where are we getting the players from? I think that that's something that has to come into, the recruitment process, the recruiting team for the federation. Is there a team? Is there a collective group? That's something that we're going to work out. The federation has to work out, but we have to select players that are prepared, that have a certain standard of fitness, a certain, like I said, I know I feel like I'm repeating myself, but a certain standard of fitness, certain standard of play, and then they're able to come together, and then we just tweak some things, and we're able to compete.
And I think we'll be able to do this. We have so many people that are concerned about the federation, mm-hmm. that wants to see our teams get better, wants to see our teams improve. And the good thing is that Haitians are all over the world.
Yeah.
There are Haitians that are ballers who are playing in Haiti and some of the clubs in Haiti. And then there's Haitians that are all over the world that are playing at high levels. We should be able to find the best players from everywhere and bring them in and be able to mm-hmm. compete and represent the national team. Yeah. So I just think going forward, the future is bright for this particular U17 team. I think there's a core group that's going to be there for the next U20s that's coming up, and with Logenia Etienne leading the charge. Lastly, what other bright spots do you think? We know that Logenia Etienne is the crack. She is the top player. But what other players do you think showed something good and can be a part of the future?
Yeah, I've said it, since the first broadcast. Dominique Desir, Ella Marie Etienne. I think those two players, given confidence, giving the trust, allowed the freedom to play their type of soccer, I think they would be major contributions mm-hmm. to the next major competition that this team would have. Those are the main ones. I think that even our number 10, what was
Nazon?
Nazon. I think that if she's properly training, if she's getting a competitive environment for the next year or so, I think, and then understands and learns from the fitness levels. Who was our 6?
That was Delanche Pierre.
Delanche Pierre, another one, bright spot, but the fitness. If we can get those players physically fit and stamina, I'm talking the proper weight, body percentage, fat, all of those things is tweaked and taken care of. We have a strong core group. And then those out there that we don't even know yet, that are saying, wow, I can play for Haiti. I'm Haitian. My dad is Haitian. My mother is Haitian. Wow, the U.S. never called me. Mexico didn't call me. Panama didn't call me. We look at Marie Etienne. She's part Panamanian as well, and was Panama's pulling on her, but she chose Haiti. There's so many players, not just us, not just our kids, that have said that had opportunities to play for other countries and they're choosing Haiti. I think that we're getting ready to see a lot more of that, of people seeing what's happening and saying, hey, I want to be a part of this revolution, and we're going to make Haiti a world power and a force to be reckoned with.
I think that, and I agree with you. I think that that's one of the things that we are about to see with the success of the women's national team over the last 5-6 years, from the U20s to the World Cup team. I think we're exactly what you said. Most players are coming to Haiti after other options didn't work. They're coming to Haiti after it didn't work in US, after it didn't work in Canada. But there were some that are like our kids and like some of these other players who I could play over there. They want me to play over there, but they chose Haiti. And I think that we're going to see more of these players that are now choosing Haiti first, that are denying other national teams to come play for Haiti, and we just got to be ready for them. So I think that's going to be good. I think another bright spot for me was Naomi Sanvilis. I think that she did well. I think we just need to find out where she fits. Is she the number 10, or is she the winger? I like her in the 10, to be honest. I think that she, at this point, showed more impact in the number 10 than I thought Nazon did. Nazon, to me, did better when she was out wide. So maybe switch those two. But she was a bright spot for me, in addition to Loginia and Dominique Desert and Ella Marie. I think that Naomi Sanvilis is a good bright spot. And number 14, Darlene Saindat was very good as well. I could just tell she's younger, but you can tell she has the capabilities. So I think the future, the core of the future is going to be bright.
And then obviously we mentioned it before, but Kimberly Prince, she's definitely, the solidified goalkeeper. Unless there's somebody out there that we don't know, she has it. I think that if we continue to get her training and continue to get her and the performance that she did in this tournament, I'm sure there are going to be some teams that's going to pick her up and is going to help her develop to the next level, in my opinion.
Because, I think there was definitely some places where she needs improvement. We talked about it in the first couple of games because there were mistakes that cost goals. And it's one thing to make mistakes, but if your mistakes cost goals, then that's got to be addressed. But she came out her last 2 games with great performances in her last 2 games. And so I agree with you that she has an opportunity that if we put her in the right environment and have the right development, she could do well. But we also need to find more goalkeepers. You have to have at least 3 goalkeepers and 4 goalkeepers in a national team camp, and you take 3 to a tournament. That's the standard. You need at least 4 that's in a camp, and they're competing and you're fighting. But then you take 3 to that tournament and only 2 is going to make the roster. So we need to have more competition in goalkeepers. And that's the thing, is that we don't have a lot of people, that want to take that responsibility. So when you find somebody like Kimberly Prince, who wants to do it, then we need to invest. We need to make sure we get her the training and the development that she needs, because we're going to need her for the U20s.
100%. And so again, the other players that are goalkeepers, I think given the same mentality, the same opportunity, I think that we need to start to train them, make sure that they're getting proper sessions that are going to help them individually, private sessions, group sessions, and then in a team environment where they can still learn the game and the other aspects of the game. Just simple things of the punch over the goal. You know what I mean? That one technique. All right, that changes the game with Costa Rica. That changes the game with El Salvador, Mexico.
Changes the game with Mexico.
Just that one technique. But this player is fending for themselves and raw talent and just showing this is what I can do from what I've done up until this point. So I think that if we get that investment where players and coaches are willing, so those of you that are watching, if you're coaching, whether it's in Haiti, whether it's in the United States or Canada or France, if this is a player that we need to just pull and embrace and give them a shot and get them that proper training, and Kimberly Prince will be the main player for us as that goalkeeper, man. We need her. We need her.
So we want to just say that we're so proud of the national team that has represented well, They did what needed to be done, which was the goal is always to be in the top 4. It's to be somewhere in the top 4. So that mission was accomplished, that we finished and that we were in the top 4.
And so if we had to rate the coach, because again, we rate the players, we rate the scenario and the coach. I would give the coach, if I'm doing A, B, C, and D and F, right? A being obviously excellent. I would give him a C plus. Pushing B, C plus. Again, looking at the success of the first 2 games, I had him at B plus A, right? Because we were going after. But then after Mexico, US, and then Canada, the decision makings were issues. Again, it could be inexperience at coaching at this level where it is win first. You know what I mean? Best players play versus lead with your heart. So that part, giving him more experience, I guarantee if he has this team the next go around, he would definitely do things differently. I'm assuming. So I would give him a C plus in this regard. What would you say?
I'd give the same thing, a C plus, and here's why. So there's a you don't know what he was handed, this team, this roster. So how much time did he have to really prepare? So that takes a consideration. A coach wants to see his players and wants to pick his own players. So we don't know if he was handed this roster. We do know that he was training most of the group back in Haiti. But I know that it's beyond him on how they prepare in terms of the scheduling matches. So I can't fault him for that. But for me, I think coaching, particularly at this young level, is about how you make adjustments.
Right.
The players play the game. And how do you guide them to be successful? How do you guide them when things are going wrong? How do you guide them? What is the messaging that helps them to make the decisions to change what's happening?
Right.
And those are the areas that I feel that was a challenge, is because we saw that we were losing games in the second half.
Right.
Things were happening tactically, and those are the areas that we want to see more impact on the game from the coaching standpoint of how do we make adjustments. So I would give the C plus as well, because I didn't think that when we received adversity that we saw all of the adjustments that needed to be done for us to compete in those games, because we are not 7 goals bad compared to US. We're not 4 goals behind Mexico and not 4 goals behind Canada. But because we did not make adjustments, that's the results we got.
Would you, just hypothetically speaking, we have no say or influence in this, but is Coach Auger the remaining coach that will receive the new incoming 15s going to U17s? Does he stay with this group to go to the 20s, or is he taken out completely and we find a new coach?
I think to be honest, I think he should stay with this group, with this age group, the U17s, because there will be a core group of players that he's familiar with already that will be returning for the U17 cycle next year. So I would keep him with the U17 group, with the new group that's coming in. And now even he can learn from this experience of the kind of players he wants. He's seen it. He's tasted the environment. He's seen the competition level. So now how to properly prepare them.
So I'm confused. You said that you think he should stay with the U17 age group, or stay with the U17 team?
Stay with the U17 age group.
Oh, so he received.
He received the incoming. So because there are players who are on this team who are younger, that he already knows that is going to have their second cycle coming up. And then you're going to have new players come in. And so if he stays at this U17 level, he knows what to expect now. He knows that this is not an easy walk in the park. So he knows the kind of players that he needs. So I think he'll be better prepared and have more knowledge of what to expect.
Right.
So staying at the U17 level, because I think going to the U20 level, this is where I think you need a different voice, a different mentality as it relates to, we can't be sharing captain responsibilities. We have to have a clear plan of what's going on. When that U20 team, the Haitian U20 team that made history, it was clear. Nerelia was the captain. All right. She was the captain, and we had other leaders on the field, but everybody know she was the one that's making those decisions. And everyone played their role and played their part, and that team was together for years. So 15 U17s were together for years, and and now you just had the right voice to be able to manage them. You know, Marc Collat didn't do all the preparation with the historic U20 team. He didn't do the preparation. He came when we went to the World Cup, when we went to the final stage of qualifying. So when you have a good coach that doesn't have to work on fitness, that doesn't have to work on that, the team has a chemistry, has a good understanding, you need someone that can manage the pieces, that manage the pieces and can see a problem and make the adjustment. So I think that's what we need at the U20 level. Coach Auger, I think, is great at the developmental level, and I think he should get another chance at U17.
Coach Mark, we definitely, you know, appreciate your efforts and the work you've done with the group, and it's learning for everybody. You know what I mean? The players, I think, is going to be learning for the federation. It's going to be learning for you, the coaching staff, learning for those players, and even learning for the fans that watch, because obviously Haitian fans, we are the most critical fans. You know, everybody's an analyst, everybody's an expert, and we expect Haiti to win everything, you know, and we don't really look at the intricate details of what brings success to a team. And so I think it's a learning experience for everyone to see what it takes to be successful in these types of tournaments. So I hope Auger, you know, is still in there and that he gets another chance. You know,
and again, congratulations. We finished 4 in the CONCACAF
that's still
region.
A great
That's a major accomplishment. We finished 4th in the major competition.
Over Costa Rica, who is considered in the top 4, over in El Salvador. All right. I think there's a very good results. And, you know, we just got to build from this. That's it. You know,
that's it. So again, congratulations for finishing number 4. And we look forward to great things to happen as we continue for the progression. This U17 team would now step up the core. Well, half of them would step up for the U20 cycle, and some of them will return for another U17 cycle. All right. The bright spot, Logenia Etienne is going all the way to the top. We pray that she stays healthy, that she stays committed, and that she stays connected with the right people around her, getting to the right training, the right environment, and her game is going to go higher. But she's not the only one. There's so many Haitian players. We saw some bright spots in this tournament, but there was some who wasn't even on this roster, that we believe that the Haitian football team is going to make it to next levels, and eyes are going to be watching what's going on in Haiti. All right. So again, to all of you that tuned in while we were following the Haitian U17 experience at the CONCACAF Championship, thank you for subscribing to us. Continue to subscribe, because we're moving on. We've got so many other things to talk about. We got the senior national team, the men's U20 team. So much more is coming. And so I'm excited about what's coming next.
Same here. I'm looking forward to about our Haitian players and the future of Haitian football. So you guys stay tuned, stay connected. All right, subscribe, like, and share, and we look forward to seeing you guys.
Okay, congratulations again to U17. We'll see you next time right here on Selección Nacional.